Welcome to ZKast, everybody. I'm Zeus Caravallo from ZK Research, and alongside my co-host Chris Preimesberger. How you doing, Chris?
Okay, Zeus, how about you?
I'm neither here nor there, so it's been a good week. This week, we had some big news items. This week was HPE Discover, and if you've ever been to that event, it's HPE's, of course, their big computing event, and the theme this year, to no surprise, was GreenLake, right? They announced their GreenLake services a couple of years ago. They came up with their edge to cloud strategy, and so everything was about that. Now, they did give an update on GreenLake, and it's doing better than I thought it was. They mentioned it had 4.8 billion of TCP bookings to date, over 1,200 customers. That's pretty big. So, much of the strategies are oriented around that. One of the things that I liked the most about what they announced was some new GreenLake portfolio services. And so what they did was they came out with GreenLake services for critical apps and industries. For instance, there's a GreenLake for EMR, electronic medical records. There's a GreenLake for financial payments. There's a GreenLake for telco, 5G. There's a GreenLake for AI. There's a GreenLake for VDI, right? And so it's interesting, Chris, that in this world of computing, you've been covering computing a long time, there's been this desire to decouple everything, right? Nobody wants a server anymore. You want to decouple everything. And then you want to put everything on virtual machines and on containers. But we've made recoupling so complicated that most enterprises can't do that. So now vendors like HP, after they've decoupled all their infrastructure, they need to put together these turnkey solutions so customers have actually run services on it. And this is a trend I think we're going to see more and more, where you do see some of these turnkey services being built on pre-built clouds.
Yeah, it's a trade-off. I mean, these are custom-built devices, custom-built chips for custom applications. So the trade-off is you get locked into those, right? And but if they work really well for you and they fit your use case, I mean, so much the better. So more power to the customer. But it's kind of getting into a lock-in situation, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's the only way that the customer can really assure that the things run. If you think about it, like Oracle's always had like a private cloud version of Oracle database, right?
Right.
So this is kind of an HP turnkey version of it. I think we're going to see more and more, but just because I think it's hard to put these together, solutions yourself. And so if you do have the technical skills to put it together and you don't want to be locked in, you can do that yourself. But this is an option for the customer that does want something more turnkey.
Yeah, options are always good. That's what I always say.
Yeah, and one of they did announce something called GreenLake Lighthouse, which is their cloud native kind of management platform. And this I was a bit confused with, because it's the control point for GreenLake, right? For the GreenLake clouds. But they did announce GreenLake Central earlier, as well as Data Service Console. And they described Lighthouse as a unified platform that has everything from hardware, software, services, and then a single console for it all to be built in. So one of the questions that came up in the analyst Q&A was, well, you already had Central, what do we do with that? And the answer they gave was, you'll manage everything through Lighthouse. So I'm assuming Central and Data Services Console go away, but that I do think that's kind of confusing with customers right now.
Yeah, they're going to have some explaining to do to customers.
Yeah. They did have another cool feature, I thought, which they rolled out something called Silicon on Demand. And so, we live in this world now where everything's gone as a service. And so now customers can buy a GreenLake cloud, and then you would spin up the number of more cores as you need them. Now, I'm not against that kind of idea, but I don't understand how it works. If you're if you're HP or HPE, that means you're buying the infrastructure, you're buying the processors, and then you're leaving your cores idle. And then if the customer needs to spin them up, you can add them and then charge them for it. So it seems like there's a lot of cost that HPE is eating in order to get this to work. Now, conceptually, if, say they have their Point Next Services group heavily involved with the customer and they run more and more stuff on that cloud, you could get the customer to spin up those cores. But it does seem like from an HPE's perspective, they're assuming a lot of risk and in having that happen. So I don't know that you've been following this as a trend service for a while. Now that it's down at the silicon level, boy, that seems about as fine as you can slice it.
Yeah, HP continues to try to really separate itself from everybody else. I mean, this is what they have to do to stay relevant. They have been doing that for years in a lot of ways, but this sets them apart from anybody else I know.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Financially how it affects the company.
Right.
There was another confusing announcement as well called Project Aurora. Was their zero trust access solution, and zero trust is certainly the way in security, right? But this one seemed very data center focused, and the reason I found it confusing was because they also have been contributing to the open source initiatives of Spiffy and Spire. They said that'll be part of Aurora. Now they acquired Silver Peak through the Aruba acquisition a little while ago. Silver Peak's zero trust solution is Zscaler, who they partner with. And then they also have Aruba, and Aruba has their own zero trust solution called in Aruba Central. So the whole concept of zero trust is zero trust. I mean, you have to have single policies, things like that. Yeah. The whole go to market for HPE is wrapped around, edge to cloud. And so it seems like the WAN would be part of that, and so would the network. But yet they have multiple zero trust initiatives, and I asked them about that on the analyst call, and they said that they recognize there's some work to do there. But again, that's if I'm an Aruba customer, I'd be confused about what zero trust framework to use. So that's certainly the direction that the industry is going in. But I don't know if you can have multiple zero trust solutions.
I was going to say, do you think HPE is going to have to somehow connect all those, in their product line so that they interact? Because they're going to have some customers that may be Aruba customers and HP, or one of their other branches. Yeah. I mean, they could be tripping over themselves with this.
Yeah, so somehow you would have to abstract the management of it up and then be able to have a single policy and then be able to push that policy down across all these solutions. I know there are some vendors that are trying to push for like open zero trust, but then but the security, you've been covering security forever. Have you ever seen any kind of standards that stick across the security ecosystem?
No.
It's very difficult. So no. I don't imagine the Zscaler partnership can be there for the long haul. Eventually, HPE would have to do that themselves. So Zscaler is immensely popular, and they have a very good zero trust solution. So,
by the way, congratulations! I saw your first story on ZDNet about Zscaler. Good for you.
Oh yeah, well thanks. I think you had something to do with that. So, yeah, they're a good company though. It's going to be impressive watching them. I didn't know if the industry really had room for another big security vendor, and they came out of nowhere, and pandemic obviously helped them. So, yeah,
they've really rocketed high in the market.
Yeah, and so I'll just finish off Discover, and I'm not sure why HPE chose to do this. Aruba's Atmosphere event was a couple of weeks ago, or maybe about a month ago now. But at Discover, Aruba also made some announcements. But they announced some AI operations capabilities, some more automation, and then some IoT monitoring ruggedized switches. So the scope of what HPE's Edge to Service platform it does include the network now. I suspect that we're going to, now that Kirti Melkoti, the founder of Aruba, has left, you will start to see more Aruba being brought into the larger HP framework. And so that's probably long overdue if they're going to actually have this kind of single strategy.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Overdue for sure.
Now, the second thing I want to talk about, and this kind of came out of nowhere, was the launch of Windows 11. Generally when there's a new version of Windows out, we hear about it months in advance, and we know that this day coming. But this just sort of dropped on us. Most of the reporters I talked to us had no idea it was even coming. And unlike other upgrades, this is going to be a free upgrade. It's due out over the holidays, and it's a drastically different Windows. And frankly, I'm not sure if I like the new interface or not, but it's very Mac-like. And it's got kind of all the windows have rounded corners. They moved the start button to the middle. They built like a snap layout window, like Apple's Launchpad is. I'm having a hard time with the positioning of it because they said it's the best operating system for hybrid work, but then they also said it's the best operating system for gaming, right? And so generally, when you try and be all things to all people, you build a product that's subpar, right?
Right. Or bloated.
Yeah, and
remember when it was, Word was just bloat.
Yeah.
Bloatmobile.
Yeah, and so I would rather have seen them came up with a separate gaming operating system, just like they have Windows Data Center and things. They did get rid of a couple of things too. So the tablet mode's dead, so they're taking that away, and IE is gone. So this will be the first operating system without Internet Explorer. I'm not sure customers are going to have an option to upgrade it, to not upgrade, because they also announced last week that Windows 10 was going to be end of life, right? So
well, not till 2025 though. So you've got a couple of years.
Well, that's true. You do have some capabilities, or a couple of years. One of the more interesting announcements was that you can run Android apps in Windows now, and to me, this is kind of an admission that Microsoft is losing relevancy with developers. And they did roll out some capabilities last year where developers could port iOS and Android apps to Windows. And as far as I know, that really hasn't gone very well. So if Mohammed can't go to the mountain, you got to bring the mountain to Mohammed, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so
I think you're right on that. They need to continue momentum among developers to stay with them through all this, and joining forces with Android to run Android that's one admission. And also, I think starting to morph a little bit into Apple. I bet you Apple is going to have a lot of fun with PR on that.
Yeah, probably.
We'll see. Especially if Steve Jobs were still around, he'd be having fun with commercials on that one.
Yeah. Well, it certainly does look a lot more Apple-like. They built Xbox Game Pass into it as well, so there's the gaming angle of it. And the last thing that was kind of interesting is they built Microsoft Teams chat into the taskbar itself. So it's not full Teams, right? If you want full Teams, you got to go download the Teams client. But it looks like they had Skype chat built into Windows 10, so it looks like this is just kind of a revamped version of it. So here is the new version of Windows, and I know there's a lot of diehard Windows users out there, so we'll see how this is received.
Yeah.
And by the way, all those changes they made, you can revert back to the old Windows if you want to. So if you don't like the taskbar in the middle, you can move back to the left and things like that. So
I have a feeling a lot of people are going to do that. And, Microsoft is not clear as to whether this new system is going to work on all, previous Windows 10's machines. I know that Lenovo, which used to be, IBM's, used to make the IBM machines. Some of those machines are not going to be able to use Windows 11 without some real help. Either, I don't know exactly how it's going to do. Microsoft's not really clear on that yet, but I would imagine we'll be getting some more information over the next few months on this.
Yeah, in fact, the Android capabilities. If you remember last year, they actually announced a way to run Android apps on Windows if you had a Samsung phone and you're willing to sync your Samsung phone to your Windows machine.
Right.
So you don't have to do that anymore. Intel built a feature called Bridge, Intel Technology Bridge, which lets you natively run it. So that's the thing is, as you pointed out, if I'm running older processors, I'm not sure I can run that Android emulation mode,
right.
Or even if I'm running ARM or AMD. So I think there's a lot of stuff. This was just announced, and I think there's a lot of stuff we still don't know about it.
Absolutely, I think Microsoft is still trying to find out too. We'll see what happens.
No, the street light that though, the stock crossed the $2 trillion valuation mark today. So
Wow.
for all us beating up Apple and Microsoft, two most valuable companies in the world. So
they're just making money and making money.
Yeah, and I know there's one more thing we want to talk about. That something you brought up to me was that some changes in the way people are making ransomware, right?
Yeah, ransomware is the worst right now, one of the worst security threats in the world of business, and not business, but nonprofits also. Now, ZDNet has a story by Danny Palmer yesterday about how they're finding out now that really coordinated, very sophisticated gangs are using virtual machines to place their ransomware code into, and then it's another obfuscation disguising their attacks. So a virtual machine gets into a system, and it sits there and waits for instructions, or it's preloaded with instructions, and it's to do its dirty work at a certain time and date. Well, apparently this is even more stealthy than previous attempts, and the motivation is all about stealth, and it's there to for the user to or the attackee, person being attacked or the company being attacked, to avoid raising suspicions. You just don't know when you get a hit. It could be sitting in your system for weeks or months before it goes off, and it's going to be really hard to track through this. So it's another layer of security attack that DevSecOps people have to be concerned with. And ZS, you mentioned that this might evolve into or morph into a container type thing too. Maybe it's already being used in containers and we don't know it, but that's something to keep an eye on in the security side of.
VMs and containers are very popular as a method of threat hunting because you can create like deceptions and decoys and things like that, right? And so it makes sense that from a bad guy perspective that you could use these same technologies to be able to hide from these threat hunting systems. And so, once we get down to the containerized mode where you can spin up, ransomware really quickly or any kind of malware, Chris, there's been I think it underscores the importance of the role that artificial intelligence is going to play in threat hunting. I just do not see anymore with the one thing that the virtual machines do is it makes the ransomware mobile, right? That you can be resident on one system and then you can just migrate it to another system. And so if you can continue to do that, it makes it very, very difficult for traditional security systems to catch anything. And so and there's been sort of a move afoot in the industry to bring more AI into it. I know a lot of security pros I talked to are still nervous about letting machines, make, threat decisions, but I don't see how you avoid it anymore. It's just the threat landscape's gotten so complicated.
Yeah, once again, the bad guys are a jump ahead of the good guys, and this has been historic. We can't seem to catch up with them and cut them off. I think we're getting there, but we're not there yet.
All I can say is thank God we have Bitcoin to pay our ransomware, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, anyways, Chris, that brings us to the end of this week's news. I think we have one more week before we hit the 4th of July holiday. So, thanks for joining me, and I'll see everybody next week.